President Trump says he's less confident a nuclear deal with Iran will happen as the two nations clash over sanctions and the future of Iran's uranium enrichment program. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly warning President Trump that Iran must be met with force as Israel launches its first naval assault against the Iranian-backed Houthis. Here to discuss this and the Middle East, our panel of experts, Jonathan Sayeh and Ahmed Sharawi, both from the Foundation of Defense of Democracies. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have you with us. Jonathan, to you first. How important is a deal with Iran for all of the sides, including Israel?
It is of particular concern of this administration, to say the least, because the Islamic Republic is currently a nuclear threshold state, and they do have the capacity to move forward with a nuclear weapon. And other open source intelligence also shows that there has been efforts of weaponization. So time is of essence when it comes to Iran, and 2025 has to be the year that the West broadly, Washington and Europe, make a decision on this issue.
Trump says he's less confident about reaching a deal with Iran. Ahmed, what's changed in the past few months to make things more difficult?
The key issue at hand is whether Tehran should be allowed to maintain a nuclear program with limited enrichment, or whether they should in fact dismantle their program entirely. So the important thing to keep in mind is that under 2015, Iran did not dismantle its program, but was still able to enrich uranium in undeclared locations, and in fact got sanctions relief for it. So currently Tehran is seeking to take advantage of Washington's deal-making instincts.
Ahmad, both sides are talking openly here about military options, and the U.S. Embassy in Iraq is actually preparing to evacuate due to heightened security risks in the region. How close are we realistically, Ahmad, to a military confrontation?
So this measure seems to be a preventative one before the discussions that are supposed to happen over the weekend between the Islamic Republic and the United States. But it's a testament to the worrying concerns over potential military escalation, especially given that the Iranians have threatened to attack U.S. bases in the Gulf and in Iraq.
President Trump, he is now pressing Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza and to stop openly discussing a possible strike on Iran. Ahmad, what does this mean for U.S.-Israel relations, and how do these tensions affect Israel's ability to manage the war in Gaza?
Of course, President Trump made it his priority to end all wars in the Middle East, and I think he's been working very hard to end the war in Gaza. Which, of course, on the Israeli side, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is still committed to fulfilling the war's objectives, which is the return of all hostages, destroying Hamas's military and political capabilities. And so we're not seeing a big shift in U.S.-Israeli relations. I think the U.S. still sees Israel as a very important strategic partner. However, if these disagreements continue, we might see a big shift within the relationship in the next days.
Yeah, and Jonathan, on top of all of the external pressure, Netanyahu's also facing a lot of serious political trouble at home. If Parliament were dissolved and his government collapses, how would that affect Israel's military strategy in Gaza and its position in these very delicate talks with the U.S. and Iran?
When it comes to Israel's foreign policy, regarding Iran specifically, it tends to be a very nonpartisan issue. Israelis as a whole see Iran as a major threat given the ballistic missiles attacks against them. So any political change inside the country would uniquely, specifically, change their policy towards Gaza more than any other issue. For example, when it comes to Syria or Hezbollah or the Houthis, it's not necessarily a politicized issue inside Israel. But any sort of collapse of the current coalition would definitely not be in favor of Netanyahu's objectives of pursuing the war, and perhaps would lead more towards finding a diplomatic solution to resolve it as soon as possible.
Yeah. While I have you here, Ahmed, I want to ask you about Syria. Axios reporting that Netanyahu has asked the Trump administration to help mediate talks with Syria's new government as a step toward a peace agreement. Originally, Israel, of course, had branded Syria's new government as terrorists, but now we're seeing some quiet diplomacy behind the scenes. How realistic, Ahmed, is any kind of peace deal right now?
I think talking about the peace deal is a bit premature. I think what's going on right now is a form of security coordination and deconfliction between Israel and Syria, especially in the area where the Syrian in southern Syria where it borders Israel. However, this was the first confirmation of Israel's intent of pursuing a peace deal with Syria. The feasibility of it would be in question, especially given that Israel seems committed to keeping the Golan Heights as part of Israel, and the Syrians still remaining committed to the idea that the Golan Heights must be returned to them. So it would be an interesting discussion between the two countries, but I still think it's a bit premature to think that a peace deal is feasible at the moment.
Yeah. Jonathan, do you care to weigh in on that at all?
I think Ahmed covered the main points. I think when it comes to specifically Syria's new leaders, there's a lot of doubts. The Europeans and the Americans opening up economically has definitely paved the way. I think some of us are very optimistic to see Syria joining the Abraham Accords ideally and seeing more peace in the nation. But as Ahmed pointed out, the context currently is too volatile to make an assessment, especially when it comes to normalization or a peace deal.
All right, Jonathan and Ahmad, thank you so much for coming on to talk about the Middle East tonight. It's great to have both of you. We appreciate all the work that you do with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you.